Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pull Focus, the cinema-based entertainment podcast where a couple of freelancers come together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as always, I'm joined by my brother in crime, a man so calm and controlled he can neither be shaken nor stirred. A man who is indeed so much more than just a number. The best-dressed casting director this side of the Rockies with a license to thrill. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Andrus. Robert Andrus.
Yeah, that's my favorite one so far. That is just like the best introduction ever. Thank you all so much for the applause and for welcoming me. Yes, this is wonderful.
Good job, everyone. Good job.
Yeah. So Mike.
Yes.
What would your acronyms or handles be in relation to the Shaken Not Stirred?
So mine is more of like a soda kind of thing. It would be carbonated or non-carbonated, something more along those lines. Less of a gut punch and more of a slap on the wrist, I think. Actually, we should jump into that. Everybody.
Well, I'm gonna hold off for just 2 seconds and just say, if my numbers are what my numbers are, then you can be my handler or my M.
Oh man, thank you so much.
You missed that. How's that?
I did. Oh, you picked that up. That's perfect. I'll be your Q any day, Andrus. That's awesome.
Oh, you'd rather be Q?
I'd be both. It's okay. Like, I love it that
mine's M and Q's.
I know, right? I love it that we found out what M really stands for. We kind of found out what it meant the last one, but in case you guys haven't noticed, you know what? We're gonna go right into the preview. I'm excited about this one. Let's go. We're gonna talk about No Time to Die.
Bond, any thug can kill. I have to know I can trust you.
Well, I understand double O's have a very short life expectancy.
You are a kite dancing in a hurricane, Mr. Bond.
Is this really what you want? Always alone?
We used to be able to get into a room with the enemy. Now they're just floating in the ether.
When her secret finds its way out, it'll be the death of you.
Oh my God.
Target enough people.
And the people become the weapon.
Who is he?
James, you don't know what this is.
James Bond. License to kill. In love with Madeleine Swan. I could be speaking to my own reflection. Only your skills die with your body. And life is all about leaving something behind. Isn't it?
Come on, Bond. Where the hell are you?
Okay.
If we don't do this, there will be nothing left to save.
I have to finish this. You ever flown like this?
Nope.
Okay, so we kind of jumped in down a little bit early. In case you guys are wondering, of course, there's no need to wonder. We were talking about the latest and also in some ways the last James Bond movie, No Time to Die. What?
What'd you just say? The last?
What do you mean?
What?
That's right. I did say it.
No, James Bond. We already know that there's going to be another James Bond.
I know that, but not with Daniel.
What? Stop it!
Not with.
Spoiler alerts.
Spoiler alert.
Don't get into it yet.
Okay. Anyway, we're going
to be spoiled later.
Exactly. We're talking about the latest film of the James Bond series, the multi-decade-long cinematic empire of James Bond, No Time to Die. Guys, this is one of those movies where it was kind of special for me because upon Andrus's recommendation, and also because of like where we're at in the world, I actually put on my little mask and I went over to the theater, and actually saw it in the big screen. And we were touching on this a little bit. Oh man, you believe in you got to believe in the science, but you also got to believe in just the quality of entertainment and movies and the way in which they're meant to be delivered, Robert. I mean, man, it was so nice to come back to the theater. It was an empty theater. I went to a matinee. That's no difference for me. I always go to the matinee because I'm
How many
cheap.
people were there for you?
There were maybe 2 people, but they were a whole like floor below me. I'm talking like, Regal Cinemas, Cinemark quality stuff. I was in my lounge chair. I was eating my popcorn. I was drinking my fruit punch, and I was trying to get Milk Duds, but the theater ran out of Milk Duds.
Imagine that.
It ruined the entire movie.
Shortage.
Ruined everything.
Milk
this movie
shortage.
is terrible. This movie is terrible. It's because I'm kidding. I was able to get some Junior Mints.
Terribly minty.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's something that like I've been personally like dealing with a little bit, and you've helped me out with this a bit, and it's really an important thing to take into consideration because we've done a good job, I think, of we're going a little bit off tangent here, but not for too long because we are going to talk about this movie. I really enjoyed this movie, and I can't wait to get your thoughts about it, Robert. But we have talked a little bit about when is it safe, when is it okay, when should we start treating things as normal, and in my personal opinion, honestly, things aren't normal yet. Things aren't completely normal, but they're normal enough, and I believe in the science enough, and what I've talked on the show before about how I'm fully vaccinated, and now I'm comfortable enough, given the way that we're at right now, that I feel okay going to the movies and, following proper protocol and that kind of thing, of course, and I'm so very glad that I did. And I'm so very glad that you gave me the idea to go out there and just see this movie the way it's supposed to be seen. I like being able to, I'm kind of embracing too, being able to sit on my couch. We're going to talk about movies that, you and I have streamed in our own homes, and we've been able to get some good experiences that way. But man, there is nothing like, after not being to the theater for over a year, coming back and seeing Mr. Craig portray, man, just the fireworks in this movie and just the good writing in this one. What a great way for him to end his...
Spoiler alerts! Spoiler alerts!
Well, we all know that he's moving on.
He's all moving on, exactly.
Okay.
This was the last film that James Bond would be portraying Daniel Craig... the other way around. That Daniel Craig would be portraying James Bond. And man, what a way to go out. Andrus, we haven't talked too much in this episode about, the things we rarely talk about, how you're doing and everything like that. You are hitting the tables right now, much like another James Bond movie. You're hitting... is it like Casino Royale in Wendover right now?
Totally.
Are you fighting off? Are you fighting off ninjas and still being able to kick butt at blackjack or what?
Fighting off the ninjas. Yes, the blackjack ninjas.
I love it.
Yeah, no, just decided to come out and hit the tables like James Bond did. But I don't do the martini though. That's not my beverage.
I feel you.
Right now I've got a vitamin water.
Excellent. We're getting rehydrated.
Vitamin water.
But let's get back onto the film. First of all, thanks again for like giving me a suggestion. I mean, you did say this. It was like, listen, I know that you're a James Bond fan. You know that about me. I've seen every James Bond movie, and you definitely suggested, look, you should, if you really want to see it. I saw it in the theater. You're not going to be disappointed. I'm so happy I took your advice. This was, I'm saying it right now, and I'm going to justify it with our conversation throughout this episode. This is my favorite James Bond movie. Out of all the ones that I've seen, I've seen all of them. This is the one that I like the most. Yeah, for real. Absolutely.
Interesting.
What were your thoughts about it before we jump into like the intricacies of it?
Yeah, I thought that this was a very, very high level number for me as far as in the franchise.
For sure.
But I also really like Daniel Craig as Bond.
Yeah, me too.
I would say Casino Royale is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite. There's a lot of reasons to like all of the other ones too. There's just so many incredible stories. This one, I'm going to talk to you about the story because the story was a little bit on the off side of it.
Let's hop into that. So let me read from the synopsis from IMDb. Mm-hmm. James Bond has left active service. His peace is short-lived when Felix Leiter, an old friend from the CIA, turns up asking for help, leading Bond onto the trail of a mysterious villain armed with dangerous new technology. And right off the bat, I think I know what you're going to say. This was a generic Bond story for sure.
Well, not just.
What were your feelings about that? Let's go right.
I was going to say mostly the fact that we're talking about the retired version of the spy, which I don't like the whole concept of that.
You don't like him getting dragged back into the innuendo and everything?
Okay, no. Like, please bring me into the innuendo. That's one of the reasons I love James Bond.
Right.
Just the whole idea that he's now retired and his number's retired and he's moved on.
Right.
I don't like the fact that he's moved on and we're bringing him back. Why not just let him? I mean, the franchise been leading this direction.
That's true.
But the idea that he is retired, that they did bring him back, maybe this wasn't a necessary movie to make for the story, for the franchise.
I think I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down. Like sometimes when we get into like a situation, Bond has always been, especially with Daniel Craig's version of it and the the more modern writers and the more modern screenplay and that kind of stuff, we have been able to dive into the fact that James Bond can be a multidimensional character. Back in the day, back in the 60s and 70s, obviously, because of the way that films were back then, he was just, one-dimensional. This assassin that could go about, had a great English accent, and had cool toys. And it was the one-liners and the beautiful people and everything else back and forth that made it alluring. It went over into, the 70s, 80s, and 90s to more of, the Pierce Brosnan era, which I'm particularly actually a big fan of, more like the Roger Moore kind of thing, which is taking it to an extreme, where they really jumped into the camp and then they came out of it. And now with Daniel Craig going through and helping out with the past 4 movies or so, we were able to see that with proper writing, we can take both of the best worlds. We have this character who we have the capability of being able, though limited, given the archetype, to go a little bit into how he can be sensitive, how his feelings can be heard, how his patriotism can work against him, and put that in line with the fact that he is an assassin. James Bond is an assassin. He has a license to kill. He's cold-hearted, and he'll, throw a bad guy into acid. And I think Daniel Craig's portrayal has been able to push that. And one thing, though, that leads me to think that this was the proper time for him to hang up his M9, but also to piggyback off of what you're saying, how we're kind of like recycling this old trope a little bit and how it's a little played out, despite the originality that we have seen with this character. I think that this is probably the best way to go out when it comes to just the story arc that we have in, because we can't play it anymore where Bond is the sensitive man, the sensitive spy who kills. That's gotten old now. And when we see that they're kind of reinforcing that, it's only in the second and third act that this movie really saved it for me. Otherwise, I'd be in the same boat as you are, where it's like, oh man, okay, this is old chess. I mean, yeah, he's retired, and it's like The Godfather. He steps out, but they got to drag him back in. What were some of the? Oh, and you know what? I know I was kidding with it a little bit before, but in case you guys are wondering,
spoiler alerts. Spoiler alerts.
If you haven't seen this movie, shut off this podcast, bro. Hey, bro. Shut off the podcast and then come back after you watch a movie. We're going to spoil everything. But anyway, so let's dive into that a little bit more. Do you think that they were able to kind of get past this this old story concept with the addition of new characters or the action or anything like that? Or do you think it was something that kind of really was an anchor for the entire movie that kind of brought it down a little bit, in your opinion?
Well, so I love Daniel Craig as James Bond,
totally.
And I've liked him in every single chapter so far.
Yeah.
And this was no different. So let me be very clear on the fact that I am a fan of him as James Bond and the franchise as a whole. But for me, And it's not necessarily how this one ends, because we'll get into that later. I'm sure. I don't want to really spoil it here, and I did too, by the way.
Yeah.
But why did this movie even exist? I think
that's a great question to ask. Yeah.
From where I'm coming from, because I feel like the rest of the franchise still takes him to the same place. Only now it's even more tragic.
There is a very specific story structure when it comes to Bond's films, especially when it comes to Daniel Craig. And these are limitations that are brought to us because this character has so much history. James Bond is supposed to be acting in a certain way. James Bond always wins, and he always does it when he has only like much less capabilities, except for like the gadgets and stuff. But he's always able to get through by the skin of his teeth.
Oh, the gadgets! Oh man, let's talk about that in a minute.
For real, and we will jump into that next. But he's able to get by with the skin of his teeth, a proper one-liner, and of course the seduction that he puts into play. There's always like the situation with like the quote-unquote Bond girl, which isn't a really a popular term, and I'm glad it isn't anymore. And that's something that we can jump into when it comes to this movie too. After we're done talking about the sweet gadgets, the Aston Martin Valhalla, all the ridiculous Omega watches, so much beautiful technology and prop mastery in this film. But I also want to talk about like how this was a really good last chapter, because it showed us that in some ways Bond has evolved. But I think you go ahead. Sorry.
I raised my finger because I'm going to say, even though in the world that we're living now, being a Bond woman or a Bond girl, I think is still pretty awesome. I
think it is still pretty awesome.
And I don't know that an apology is necessary for any of the women that have ever played it.
I know.
Or will play it. Especially because how they introduced the new Bond girl.
So let's
know what I'm hinting
I absolutely know what you mean. And oh my God, this is an incredible actress that we've talked about, who has acted opposite Daniel Craig back in Knives Out, another film that we talked about early on.
Well, I'm actually talking about the other Bond girl.
I thought you were talking about the other Bond girl, because there's
the 00.
I know.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, there's so much, Andrus.
Let's talk about Anna, because I adore Anna.
Okay,
let's talk about her right away.
So once more, we have the absolutely capable, just ridiculously stunning in every way. I mean, first of all, the cast here is absolutely ridiculous. But let's focus on Ana de Armas. She goes in and she plays Agent Paloma, and she is opposite Daniel Craig. Only in this way, she isn't playing some naive young lady.
Yes, she is.
Like she was in Knives Out, but she also is a little bit. But she happens to be a ruthless, capable, technically magnificent martial artist assassin by MI6, or CIA, or whoever it was that Felix was able to played masterfully by Jeffrey Wright, by the way, to go in and help Bond in the scene that started the second act of the film. What happens here in regards to what's going on is that this is a really good way for James Bond to relive his past. He's married to a woman named Madeline, played by the really very talented, the second Bond girl in the movie, Léa Seydoux. And we go through a bit of a history where it came to Bond touching on previous films that Daniel Craig was in. Madame Green's character comes back, who was the Vespa, who was the love interest in the first Daniel Craig, or second Daniel Craig movie. Was it Casino Royale?
No, it was Casino Royale.
It was Casino Royale, who died, and we visit her grave, and that's a trap, and Bond gets blown apart. We find out that his wife, he actually got married after quitting MI6 and going dark, giving up his license to kill. We find out his wife is actually the daughter of the leader of the nefarious anti-MI6 spy group, the group dependent upon chaos, larceny, and quite honestly, a very cool logo and business card, Spectre. And the movie begins with them escaping Spectre's clutches, and Bond and Madeline just breaking up right there. And apparently, the same kind of theme that we have playing in here, the best way for us to introduce the audience that Bond is more than just a killing machine is at the fact that he can fall in love. And he fell hard for Madeline, but unfortunately, he had to give that up, escape Spectre, and go right back into MI6 and just lose himself in his work and the spy work and everything that he was doing. During the first act, we come back to present day, and Bond is doing his thing. He is out. He is done. And Felix Leiter, played by Jeffrey Wright, who is the best CIA operative ever in any kind of spycraft film ever made, masterfully portrayed by Jeffrey Wright, who is one of the only actors who I can take just as seriously when he's doing Othello versus when he's doing like a wisecracking CIA operative at the same time. My God, the man is so talented. And this is stuff he did with Westworld and everything.
I'm a fan of the man, but man, that was a really big throwdown that you just labeled on him, because I've got to throw out Sydney Bristow.
For sure. I mean, I don't know
because I love Alias. Come on. It's CIA, and she's the best operative ever.
I respect where you're coming from. I respect where you're coming from.
She's the Neo.
It's one of those
the aliases.
It's one of those situations where and Bond picks up on this, where he says in the last film where he kills who was it? It was Logan Ash, played by Billy Magnuson, who we've talked about in like previous films, like in Wolverine, I believe. We also talked to him recently about him when he was in Beckett, excuse me, and he just does a really good job of playing swarmy government white guys who end up getting killed in the movies.
So much fun.
He's such a good job. He does such a good job.
He's got the charm and the charisma
for
too.
real.
He's gonna be my new favorite bad guy.
I can't wait until he plays. Yeah. I can't wait until he gets like the Oscar role for like doing follows in like Christoph Waltz's footsteps, who also was in this movie playing Blofeld, and just nails it with some sort of like you mentioned, some sort of villain role or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, going back all the way to Paloma, the second act introduces us like the main point of the story, where Bond is dragged back into work after agreeing to go about and find out what's going on with the secret weapon that Felix Leiter was able to find. They're successful with a really wonderfully choreographed, cool fight scene with guns and martial arts and everything. Ana de Armas is doing an incredible job playing this. I mean, I don't know how to characterize this character, Andrus, because like the character has only been doing things for 3 weeks. She comes into it. She's a natural.
That's an inaccurate quote.
Yeah, right? I know she's only playing and everything.
Well, yeah. So I mean, but the idea is that she's so new and fresh that he doesn't know if he can trust her as support. And my oh my, does she impress because of expectations? But yeah, no, I would say that she's been a field agent, and maybe this is the first time she's in this position.
I see.
And for 3 weeks. But I thought I took it tongue in cheek. So.
But that's the thing, tongue in cheek. Like I love so well how this particular film balances the seriousness of what it means to be an assassin. Obviously, I can't believe that word's coming out of my mouth. The seriousness of being an assassin for the MI6, but also like the tongue in cheek campiness that is common in Bond. The one-liners, the way he seduces the Bond girl, so on and so forth. It's like one of these situations where we have Ana de Armas, who does this disarming, fake, innocent kind of character.
Not fake.
Not fake, very, but very, like okay, no, very true.
But
I don't want to.
I understand what you're saying.
You understand what I mean? Like she,
totally get it.
She does such a good job.
She's disarming.
Exactly, but she does such a good job as an
actress. Is disarming.
Exactly. You're so terrible.
I know, it's my favorite.
But she does such an excellent job of playing the agent, the person who knows that one of their strengths is that they're going to be underestimated, and then turn that on its head and end up being the victor in the fight. And I love the way in which she portrays this character.
Well, and I think she's just a phenomenal choice, and I'm so glad
she's just a great actress. She really is.
The world knows who she is. So I'm loosely affiliated with her in a movie that I cast in Utah.
It's amazing.
That she happened to be in. So
yeah, that's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. Cool. That's why we're paying you for the podcast. That's why we're making the big bucks.
Yeah, so much. So much.
But we talked about Ana de Armas. We talked about Léa Seydoux, the two Bond girls on this film. We cannot, in the same breath, then not talk about Lashana Lynch, who plays Nomi, who is the inheritor of 007, the new 007.
That's a spoiler if I ever heard one.
Right?
Spoiler alerts. Spoiler alerts.
But man, what a spoiler. And we warned you guys, but don't worry. She earned it. Just the way in which Lashana Lynch can go about and play this great, physical, capable character, the way in which she uses the props with the guns and everything. There are certain things that after you watch enough movies you can pick up on, and I like to think that I would like to think that I have the capability, at least when it's painfully obvious or not, or whatever. Maybe not so much as the nearest layman, to know that the armorer on the film did a good job of being able to train these individuals and know what's going on. Yeah. Lynch is a badass in this movie, and I cannot be happier about it.
She for sure is. Yeah, she was formidable from the get-go.
Absolutely.
Even in the cloak and dagger of the opening. I thought it was delightful.
When we go through then, and this is like a big subject that I wanted to touch on a bit, and I think the way in which you introduced it by having the actors who are identify as female and who are major parts in the plot and the story here. This is not by accident. Over the years, and especially nowadays, and I think for proper reasons, there could definitely be some debate in regards to it, but James Bond absolutely in the past was a misogynistic character, and over the past decade or so, especially with Daniel Craig coming into the helm and doing what he could to add his own panache, and also different production teams that go into play and understand how the world really works nowadays, they have been working hard to make sure that people of marginalized communities, people who would not have been given the spotlight in previous Bond films to their detriment, may have been a sign of the times, say whatever it is, it's understandable. They were making up for it here, and they were doing it, I think, in responsible ways. We have 3 female characters. One of them happens to be a person of color, and they have a major part to play in the plot of these movies, and they do so competently, and they do so wonderfully. We have ways in which Daniel Craig is actually able to use some great acting chops to show, honestly, the sensitivity that Bond has been able to grow over the past 4 films, and we can now finally believe. In the previous film, when we saw how Judi Dench's character died and the emotional turmoil that Daniel Craig was able to show us through his characterization, that was beautiful. But now we see that Bond is not, in my opinion, I mean, there's still some ways to go, and I can understand how people can get on that bandwagon a bit, but they have improved him as being a real person. I think somebody who suffers, somebody who deals with things in different ways besides just shooting them, but who's also capable of being able to defend himself. And with the additions of competent, capable actors and actresses that represent the real world and real world problems and challenges of different situations, and are judged, at least in this movie, solely regarding their motives and their merits, I found that to be the most refreshing part of the film. I know that it may be a situation that, there's a lot of debate in Hollywood, there's a lot of debate in entertainment in general about what it is to be, more conforming to, this is a loaded term, but more conforming to a woke culture. But all in its purest form, it's just asking for movies and entertainment to reflect the real world. People of color, women, and marginalized people exist in the world. And the fact that we have more representation of that in a characterization in a movie, in a cinematic kind of LP that has been known to be misogynistic and has been known to limit its capability when it came to the populations and the communities that it represents. I think that the past 4 movies, and this one being the best example, have finally been able to accept and finally been able to use in a productive manner the embracing of the real world cultures and that representation. And what's really great is that the movie is still good despite that. These are strong characters that happen to have this representation that also push the narrative in a positive way, and it's done right.
Yeah, I would say where it becomes a bigger issue is if it's for the shock and awe of it.
Exactly.
If it's for just the message of being woke, where it doesn't really add to the story.
Right.
And I hate the term woke, but we don't have another word to say it.
True.
Socially conscious?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
Socially aware.
That's a limit. I don't want to get too much on my soapbox in regards to that, but that's a limitation that I have as a podcaster too. I am so happy that the cast of this movie represents populations in the real world.
Right.
You know?
And that was really, really cool about it.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, in fact, we have a woman of color who is the new 007. She's the new 007 in this movie. She's been given that designation. She gives it back at the end. But
I think Naomi Harris was supposed to be the new 007. Damn it.
Yeah.
Because I love the money penny.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, I think all of it makes perfect sense through certainly the last 4 movies, and definitely with our times and how they are a changing.
For sure.
But the other comment that I wanted to make about the misogynistic side of it is they also chose to go a different direction with this one in introducing a child.
Absolutely.
So now, is it Superman's child or is it not Superman's child? We'll see. I'm sorry, I meant James Bond.
But that was the secret. That was the secret that Blofeld knew that Bond didn't at the time.
Yeah, but really, come on, just stop. I'm sorry.
Okay, I feel you. That is a big story structure point that we have to put into. Like there is this whole situation where throughout the movie, throughout the action, we get more information in regards to what Spectre is doing, and that ultimately it isn't Spectre itself that's being the main bad guy here. It is Rami Malek's character, Mr. Safin. His first name is a take on Lucifer, I think. Lucifer Safin. And he was an individual whose family was killed by Christoph Waltz's character, Blofeld, who was the leader of Spectre, and through the manipulation of this bionic virus that they're able to find throughout the movie, they're able to target the members of Spectre and kill all of them, and ultimately they're able to kill Blofeld too, who again, Christoph Waltz, I mean, honestly, he only had like 5 minutes of screen time, but my God, the man is ridiculously good in whatever he does.
He's a force.
And I do love it too that we did have like the characterization of the part of Primo Cyclops, played by Dali Ben Salah. He was walking around with a cybernetic eye, but the eye actually belonged to Blofeld. I mean, it's like this. It's a Bond villain. I mean, we have to have somebody who takes off a hat that can cut titanium by just throwing at it, or somebody who likes putting people in gold or whatever. We have the guy with the cybernetic eye, but we find out later that Rami Malek's character is not just bent on destroying Spectre. He's bent on, as any Bond villain would be, destroying the world domination. And luckily, Master Craig and the team of MI6 with Ralph Mother-Lovin' Fiennes, Rory Mother-Lovin' Kinnear playing Tanner, and again, absolutely ridiculous Naomi Harris playing Moneypenny. Once more, Moneypenny for the first time. Not the first time, but not the first movie, but the first time in this series, Daniel Craig, a woman of color, which makes me feel even better that there's representation throughout this. I
was a fan of her from Casino Royale.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Bring on the Naomi Harris. I'm a fan.
And I think that Ben Whishaw as Q just went about and just watched the older Bond movies because his mannerisms are definitely reflected. And he's definitely no longer how can I put this? The unpracticed youngster that we see. He's been doing such a good job, and I really think that he's been doing such a good job of being able to. I don't know if he's doing this. Might be my own my own biases when it comes to British actors or anything like that. But I really do think that he is just following the footsteps of Desmond Llewellyn, who was the Q back in the day with Pierce Brosnan and that kind of stuff, because his mannerisms and everything are coming out so well, and he does these really wonderful asides later in the movie where we find out the fate of Bond, how he has these quiet, very, very sad 1v1s with the camera, and he realizes that he has to transfer the call or whatever to Madeline so that she and Bond can. Well, we'll get to that. But one of the anyway. Speaking of that, there were definitely some daring things that they did in this movie when it comes to the characters, Andrus, and we can get to the big one in a minute. But I wanted to know your feeling in regards to how the story worked. You mentioned before how this does take a generic kind of setup where we have the same thing we have in every Bond movie. Bond is a rebel. He has a job to do that's going to change the world. Will he or won't he? Of course he will, but an impossible task, right? But I think that they did take some daring jumps here in regards to how we could explore individual characters. Certain characters are doing things in this movie that in other Bond movies, they wouldn't. They're more dimensional. They have more capability of being able to provide us, this representation of a real person. Do you think that there were some daring things that they did in this movie that they haven't in the other previous incarnations with Daniel Craig? Or do you think it was pretty much just cookie cutter the entire way, keeping in mind that the overall plot is pretty generic anyway? Is there anything like rang out to you at all?
Nothing like so overwhelmingly obvious comes to mind.
Okay.
So you tell me what you're referring to, and I'll tell you whether or not I even thought of it as something that we should talk about.
Let's put Anna de Armas off to the side, because she's my best example. Just like having somebody in there who is being able to flirt with the naivete and still be able to make things work.
Okay. If we're talking about it, no Bond woman died.
That's a good call. That's a very good call.
So there's that one. And is that what you were referring to?
That's one thing I was referring to, but also like the way in which the characters were able to play bigger parts here and have the spotlight on them. Usually, and even like in the previous incarnations of the Daniel Craig stuff, Daniel Craig was front and center.
It's the Daniel Craig show.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
This one, not so much. I really did enjoy. We got to see some emotion from Ralph Fiennes playing M. We finally find out that M stands for Madeline, which I didn't realize. Mallory.
It stands for mother.
It stands for Mallory.
It stands for mother.
Okay,
M is mother.
Fine. But like Bat was
Q is IQ and Bond is Bond. I mean, we all know that.
We do all know that. I swear to God, I've seen every Bond movie. But we saw some really good character work from Ralph Fiennes. I thought Rami Malek, though ridiculously talented, he wasn't used really well in this movie. He was a generic Bond villain. I didn't like that, but
he was a boring Bond villain.
Yeah.
And I liked his side of the story, so I'm not going to harp on that as far as motivation or anything else, because he's got a good story. He does have a good story to back it up. But I mean, as far as him being the threat, he's not the threat. He's the guy with the finger on the button. That's all he is. That's a great way
to put it.
So I think the threat is what he's capable of unleashing, not the fact that he's a psycho or that he's got this menacing plan. It's just he's the guy with his finger on the button.
So do you think that was a trait that was, because I've been talking a bit about like how, again, we have Armas, we have Lynch, we have Wishaw, we have, Fiennes going about and actually getting a little room to stretch in this world. But do you think that most of the characters then were actually pretty cookie cutter? Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree.
Maybe, because I mean, maybe all of the Bond villains are
Fair.
The guys with fingers on the trigger, but there's some that are so just whatever term or phrase you want to use, evil.
Diabolical.
Dr. Evil is the reference I'm coming up with. Thank you very much. But they're just so despicable. Oh, sorry, there's another one.
So you're doing that on purpose.
I'm gonna keep going.
Okay.
No, but
focus.
But
I'm kidding.
There's this level of threat that they have.
They are dangerous.
That makes them dangerous. I did not get that from Malek on this one.
He did, and I don't think that was Malek's fault.
I got a little bit more sympathy from him.
Yeah, the way in which his character was, he was just he was a privileged villain. He had.
How funny is that you said that?
I know, it's true. I'm picking that up for sure, but it's true. He had his stronghold given to him. He had his whole diabolical reason for being whatever given to him. He had his weapons given to him. Everything. So it was like the situation here where I can understand.
So he's a Loki? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Only Loki's a much better villain because he shows points of being a human being. Malek, though, does such a great job with whatever he's in. He's one of my favorite actors. And even when you tell him to play deadpan, he does it well. But there were not a lot of dimensions on Safin. There just weren't.
Yep, I would agree with you.
If anything, we got more out of David Denchik, who played Valdo Obruchev.
Cyclops.
No, that was the crazy doctor who. Oh wait, you know who that is? Never mind. He was a better bad guy. We end up finding out that in the best scene in the movie, not the best scene in the movie. The best scene in the movie was the last scene in the movie. We'll get to that in a second. But the second best scene in the movie was where we saw Nomi 00 look at Obruchev, and we find out at a certain point that Obruchev is just a flat-out racist. He's just an absolute terrible racist. Right. And she looks at him and she says, "You know what time it is?" And he says, "No, what?" And she says, "It's time to die." That's right. Somebody besides Bond was able to use the title of the film in the dialogue. Never happened before. This is like
it was a passing of the torch.
They're breaking the mold, and it was so great.
The passing of the torch. It's so obvious. It's so obvious.
I think like this is one of those situations too where I can definitely see it as being like a testing ground. Like, hey, are we ready for a female woman of color to play James Bond, to be the next 007? The answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes.
Here's the thing, though.
Uh-oh.
Here's the unfortunate thing. I think this is a one-off.
Yeah.
Because I think that, yes, she is the new 007, but she is not James Bond.
Gotcha.
And in the credits, this is a big spoiler.
Yep. Here we go.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Did you see it that James Bond will return?
No, I didn't. I left the theater afterwards.
Okay. Why didn't you stay through the credits?
Because, I always stay through the credits. I always stay through the credits because of the same kind of ideal that we have, at the very least, for all of the people, the men, women, and children who make the film work, who, especially given current headlines, have apparently been effed over a lot for a long time. The very least we can do is sit there and read their names. I didn't do it this time because I was depressed because the way the movie ended. I loved it, but
I get it.
In solidarity, I wanted to grieve.
I'm just gonna hang my head and walk away.
I wanted to grieve because James Bond dies in this movie. That's right, I said it. The very last scene that we see James Bond, Daniel Craig, he looks up to the sky, realizing that he is sacrificing his life, realizing that he is saving the world, but also realizing that he'll never see his daughter ever again. As a flora of missiles comes down and collides with him, he disappears in white smoke and graphite and explosives. And then the last scene of the movie, we see his daughter and his his previous wife, Madeline. She gives up a great line. "I'm going to tell you about a man. His name was Bond, James Bond." Close to credits. Beautiful ending for a really, really good send off. A really good send off for Craig too, who revolutionized this role. No man is an island, no woman is an island, and it was a huge crew, cast, and everything that made this movie happen. Made the entire Bond LP happen, but nobody was able to move this ship in the way that Daniel Craig was. And I'm sorry to see him go, but man, what a way to go! What a way to close this chapter! It's really very cool.
I think it was an appropriate ending for the story that they put together.
Yeah.
I think for me, I would have preferred not to have had a closing chapter.
Why is
done?
That? Why?
I liked how the other movies ended and left things to the unknown. I don't like knowing.
There's definitely something to the one-liners, especially again. I keep going back to Pierce Brosnan, but the whole thing with Christmas comes twice a year. The whole thing with...
Oh, that's my favorite from all of them. Yeah, that's the worst.
It is terrible, right? It is terrible, but it's
my favorite. Hence my favorite.
But that was one of the things too, where it was really leaning into the camp. But now we have nothing but seriousness towards the end. And just this beautiful ending, this beautiful scene where it's a mother and daughter remembering this character, which is very cool. Also,
this hero,
and he wasn't the only hero that died either. And this is something that made me very angry. This made me very angry.
That made me so angry, actually.
I know. Why did they have to kill Felix?
Do you know why?
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Why?
I think because it's also a solidarity thing. I don't think that they can kill Felix and not Bond.
Yeah.
And have the same result.
I think you're right.
Bond soldiers, and they're men of duty, they're men of honor, they're men that give their lives for their country and for the world. So
they're more than men. They're brothers.
They're brothers.
Which actually was a great line where Bond did kill Logan Ash, I mentioned before. It was super good. But you're absolutely right. These characters are embodiments of patriotism, and that can be a loaded term, especially nowadays, to call yourself a patriot and that kind of stuff. But
they literally serve their country.
They literally serve their country to the greatest of their ability, and they sacrifice themselves for their countries and for the betterment of the world too in this universe as well. Totally. Because if they didn't do what they did, then the world would have ended. And that's I think that's something that they touch upon a bit, and that's also the reason as to why I left before the credits ended, because it was just one of these situations where it's like, all right, I just want to get out of the theater and just kind of I need to digest this a little bit.
Crawl into the fetal position and cry myself to sleep.
Well, I don't want to make it sound like it's a movie. It's a movie. But yes, first of all, yes, no, but it is a movie, but it is something that's hit home, and I think that it is because specifically I am so happy to have seen them. I believe that James Bond did begin as misogynist. I absolutely do. And to be able to see them evolve into just a more realistic character that was just more human, I found really refreshing, and I really enjoyed it. And I was sad when this movie ended. I'll tell you what, I was yelling at the screen, me and the other two people who were in the theater. I yelled, "Don't kill Phoenix, goddammit!" And of course he did sacrifice himself so Bond could be safe. And also, we won't be able to see Jeffrey Wright play the role anymore, which makes me sad. But
it's okay, because we'll see him in everything else.
And everything else, exactly. So
because literally he's so
talented. He's so talented. Yeah. So then, when it comes to we talk about how story structure has changed. We talked about how this movie is a not the perfect one, obviously, but a better reflection of the real world. How the characters are being encompassed and different roles are being provided to people who are more marginalized. What were some of the biggest shortcomings that you saw besides the generic storyline? I mean, again, we do have this impossible task being taken over by Superman. We do have the situation coming in where, despite the fact that we did have a hard out, the man gets killed by a missile storm. And then we see in the credits, hey, he's coming back, don't worry. Have no idea how they're going to write that in, but
it's not Daniel Craig, James Bond.
I get it.
That's the new one.
I get it.
Just like we have the Batman.
I know.
We have so many iterations of movies.
Andrus, I dare you. Batman never died. Anyway, we have to. What are some of the? Don't do that. We're not gonna get into screen theory right now with the Nolan films. That's another podcast. What were? Have we already talked about the biggest shortcomings? I mean, what were the wins and the wins and losses of this movie for you? What were the biggest things that really popped out to you?
Honestly, I don't have too much to say negatively about this movie.
Gotcha.
I really, really enjoyed it. The action was stunning,
so good, stunningly good,
and exciting, and everything that it needed to be.
It didn't go on too long either.
I'll tell you the one thing that does come up is the fact that he was blown up and he survived.
Oh, from the first scene, yeah. So what Andrus is talking about, everybody, is that in the first act where we're introducing a bit of his past and Spectres after Bond and everything. There's literally a landmine in the grave of in Vespa's grave, and it detonates, and he isn't killed. He's just blown back a bit. But yeah, I can respect where you're coming from in that regard.
But I mean, okay, so Spycraft being what it is, and everybody's attempt to kill him, he's unkillable.
Yeah. It's a Black Widow syndrome.
With the exception of how many?
Easily 4 dozen
warheads.
4 warheads. Each had a dozen little warhead babies that came down, and they had to open up the. Listen, I'm telling you right,
bombs, whatever it was,
bro. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, if those blast doors are closed or open, guess what's happening? That whole missile silo was made in the 60s.
Everything's dead.
It's
right?
dead. Yeah, forget it.
Everything. But His first time being blown up.
Right.
Only dazed him and maybe gave him a little tinnitus. But
I've loved that sound effect ever since Band of Brothers, where like you just tone down the mids and like give like
everything just gets muffled.
Oh my God, it's so easy to do.
It's beautiful.
I don't know why people haven't been doing it since like forever. But man. Well then, I think
beautiful.
Ben, like,
but great. Everything was great. And like, I really enjoyed this movie for a lot of reasons.
Well, let's dig in then and get the specialities, because I do want you to diamond cut a little bit, because this is a diverse cast. Not to say that Bond films haven't had diverse casts in the past, but I think this movie does a really great job. I don't mean to harp on this too much, but it does a really good job of being able to share the spotlight. Was the spotlight, in your opinion, carried well by the supporting cast when it was given to them to play with a little bit in the script?
No, for sure.
Okay.
For sure it was.
Would you have made any changes or anything? Or was it one of those situations too? Because we've talked about this before, and I always use you as a barometer where it's like, I know I'm asking big questions here. That's like kind of my tendency towards the end of the episode anyway. Mm-hmm. Could we have replaced any of these actors with other actors, and would that have changed the ways in which the character was able to be presented? Or
1,000,000,000% yes and no, just like I answer every other time. As soon as you put somebody else into the role, you get a different feel, a different vibe, a different chemistry with everybody. Mm-hmm. So that's why I did not like Ralph Fiennes when he came on originally. Because he's filling the shoes of Judi Dench, which nobody can do. Period. But that's the whole idea of a transition in a role. And if we're going to do a throwback to Batman, we might as well bring up cast replacements,
right?
Which they did not do, to my knowledge, on any of these movies.
No,
every actor played the role that they have been playing. But it's a difficult thing, because when they did it in Batman, we all accepted it, because we went and watched it, or we downloaded it, or whatever the functionality was then. But there is different energy from those women playing that same role.
Yeah.
So on this one, of course things change. I mean, yes, things change. But could the movie have been a success? I don't know that it would have been the same if they put in. Oh my goodness, I'm going to butcher some names here, so I'm just going to do a quick look up. So take
if they put in
Anna.
I know what you're saying. If they put in Idris Elba for Daniel Craig, it's a completely different movie. I get what you're saying.
Please let us see this movie.
Please.
I mean, I'm so down for that. But man, why can't I think of her name right now? Pugh from Black Widow.
Who played the sister? Florence.
Florence.
Yeah.
You put Florence Pugh in Ana de Armas's role.
Mm-hmm.
You still get a very similar, connected, exciting,
right,
portion of the movie.
I gotcha.
I think the difference between Florence and Ana is that instant likability charm factor that Ana definitely has.
Absolutely.
I think Florence has it as well, but just in a different way.
I agree with that.
I think she's more capable physically and visibly.
The choreography,
believable in the role.
The choreography
the
choreography in Black Widow was definitely more advanced when it came to like the one-on-one kind of stuff. Even though the stuff here in
no, it's super good. I believed every second of it.
The gunplay was amazing.
But for instance, you do a casting adjustment like that, and there's very little ultimately that changes in the movie and the storyline, other than that chemistry between Bond, or that moment in time where she does do her job to the best of her ability, and
Bond gives her credit,
fails or whatever.
Bond gives her
and
credit.
He does give her credit.
Yeah, it's great. So. Oh, maybe that speaks to the strength of the writing, or maybe it speaks to like the capability of the.
Maybe it's all of it.
Maybe it's all of it.
Just because all of the other roles, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If they get an actor of equal caliber or talent level,
plug and play,
nothing really changes other than than chemistry.
I gotcha. Well, sometimes chemistry can carry a film, and the chemistry was working very well, I think, with all the secondary cast and Craig.
For Anna, yes.
Absolutely. I think from a sound perspective, Bond films, especially coming from like Bond films that came out like in 2000s, not so much as the most current ones, but they're always like a masterclass in audio development.
I believe it.
Again, like in the more campy ones, and of course, like when we're stretching all the way back to like the 60s and 70s. I mean, that's not what I'm considering. When we take certain soundscapes into play, and we deal with different genres, but something that I harp on a lot when it comes to audio and that kind of thing. You're going to be limited, or you may be given too much, depending upon the genre of the film. And what James Bond does, and it's spy tech and that kind of stuff. Movies that follow like this particular genre, action thriller, that kind of thing. It's like an amalgamation of sorts, and that makes the audio engineer's job. And I'm talking about mostly like Foley and like reinforcement stuff that you would do like in a DAW, not so much a live recording on set, because I mean that is always a hard job in an action movie. You have to make sure that everybody's fit, everybody's ready, and you have to make sure that you're not getting any mess ups in the wireless signal and that kind of stuff. It's an infrastructure situation at that point. What's really great about James Bond, and what's really great about specifically these past 4 films, is that the sound is so believable, but also dabbles in fantasy a little bit. We don't know what a bionic virus implanted into the spies of Spectre sounds like when it activates, but you have to make it sound realistic. You also have to do that same thing when it comes to impacts, explosions, all this stuff. I nerd out when it comes to being able to recognize the same gunshot in a movie that was played just minutes before. It didn't happen here. And that I always find very, very refreshing, because it means that people are looking at things through a real-world lens, but still playing with fantasy a little bit when it comes to the more extravagant things that come about in films like this. But that glider that turns into a submarine doesn't exist in real life. So what does it sound like? Well, you better make sure that it sounds awesome, but also make sure that it sounds realistic. And sometimes that can be so challenging. And when it's done so very well, like what was done in this movie, I was taking notes. It's just the way it works. And I find that to be really one of the things that I can depend upon when it comes to James Bond movies, especially the last 4. Everything is realistic, but also it isn't. And it's always just this beautiful thing to hear it crisp and clear and original. And also just take into consideration, bullets sound different dependent upon the temperature of the air that you're shooting the gun in. They do. And this particular movie, for instance, takes that into representation, and they take that whole model and spread it throughout the entire film. The reinforcement and the sound design was chef's kiss on this movie, and I'll watch it again when it comes out for download, like I do with every James Bond movie. Only when I do it in my living room, I'm going to be taking notes. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I love that. Right. I had no thoughts on the sounds of the
I think about it all
the death
the time.
The death virus, or the machine that we do not. I like that machine. I thought it was so cool.
It was so cool.
It's very Bond. It's very Bond.
And like Nomi just playing it off. Have you ever flown one of these things before? Oh, no, I have no idea how it works. Let's go. It's just
I'll figure it out. It's just like it has an on-off switch. It's got things that move. Yep. Great.
And everything else is intuition. Much like the way in which we do this episode, which is now ending, but also the way in which we do this podcast is also an intuition. And sometimes that intuition might be right on or it might be way off. We depend upon you guys to let us know. Because remember, we may be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. We really do appreciate you guys taking a moment to listen to us. That is it. That is our long talk about the latest James Bond film. What a pleasure it was. What a good movie. I would suggest people go see it, especially if you're Bond.
Go see it.
Yeah, just go see it. It's a fun movie. Just go ahead and check it out. Especially, you know what? Even if you're like me and it's the first movie that you're going to go see in public, be safe, of course, but hey, go for it. Have a good time and enjoy yourself. But ultimately, that's really all we had to say about it. But, what's the point of talking if people aren't listening? And if you are taking time out of your day, especially, like I just mentioned, during the time of COVID, taking time to listen to us yammer on about, entertainment, movies in general, and all this other kind of stuff, we can't thank you enough. If we're doing what we can to try and make things a little bit easier, even if it's only for like an hour at a time, we're happy to do it. We stand with you, we stand beside you, and we hope that everyone's doing okay out there. Andrus, thank you so very much once more. Despite the fact that you had to hold people off from the blackjack table, you're able to make time for me to talk about this movie, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you, as always, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
and thank you.
An absolute pleasure. Everybody, thanks a lot once more. We will talk to you again. But in the meantime, take care and be safe. Bye.
And James Bond will return.
How dare you, but also true.